She's learned to enforce Madra into a weapon so that it gathers aura as it moves, strengthening with time. She has learned to pour Madra into a striker's slash, severing a tree branch 20 paces away. She's even learned to crystallize her power into a forged razor, though it still shatters like glass. She still hasn't learned a ruler technique, the ability to manipulate compatible aura in the world around her. It's a weapon she hasn't seized. Her Madra echoes in time with her breath, gusting out and striking the circle of swords and the aura gathered there. The aura echoes with a pure note, sweet and clear in the winter afternoon. The swords slide away. Suggested topic: the fated future of Yaren, the Sword Sage's disciple. Continue? Denied. Report complete. Chapter 1. Lyndon unwrapped the bandage from Yaren's forehead, examining the wound. It was red and angry, a long slash, but shallow. Her master's remnant had cut her with the precision of a battlefield surgeon. She was already covered in scars so pale and thin they looked as though they were painted on her skin, and unless he missed his guess, she was going to end up with a fresh new set in a few months. He tossed the crusty bandage into the fire. Fuel wasn't terribly hard to come by out here in the hills east of Mount Samara, but gathering sticks was torture on his injured back. He wouldn't give up any tinder, and burning their old bandages had the added benefit of removing blood scent from their trail. He doubted anyone would leave Sacred Valley to track them, but no one ever died from being too careful. Yaren sat quietly, watching the fire, as Lyndon dug into his pack at his feet. He liked to carry anything he even might need, so his pack bulged at the seams. Seated on a fallen tree as he was, the pack stood higher than his knees. But he'd been glad he had it over the past 5 days. He pulled out another roll of clean gauze from a pocket, quickly tying it around Yaren's head. That cut on Yaren's forehead wasn't her worst, so by the time he was finished, she was wrapped like a fish packaged for market, and he wasn't much better. "Apologies, but this is the last of the bandages," Lyndon said, replacing another gauze wrapping on her elbow and tossing it into the fire. "I have a set of spare clothes that we can cut into strips." "Won't need it," Yaren said. "Now that I've got something more than wind and wishes in my core, I'll cycle for a few more days and be all polished up." She rapped her knuckles on the back of her forearm with the air of someone knocking on wood, though it made the usual sound of flesh on flesh. "Iron Body comes with all sorts of treats, depending on what sort you have. Copper's even easier. We'll break you through to copper tonight, and that'll perk you up quick. Nothing does good for the flesh and blood like advancing a realm." Lyndon paused with the last strip of gauze in his hand. "Tonight?" She turned to flash him a quick smile. "Unless you'd choose to wait." As she turned, he had to dodge to avoid taking a thin steel arm to the face. The limb sprouted from her shoulder blade, a structure of forged Madra so dense that it felt like real steel, ending in a sword blade that dangled over her head like a scorpion's tail. She grimaced, and the arm lurched awkwardly away from Lyndon's cheek. "Haven't quite tamed that one yet. Sorry." His task was complete anyway, so he stood up from the log and moved around her. "Copper, you said. I'll be able to sense vital aura, won't I? Even sword aura?" He thought he understood copper fairly well, having grown up primarily around children who had reached that stage, but from Yaren he'd learned that half of what he knew about the sacred arts was completely wrong. This was an opportunity for him to learn, and perhaps to gain something more. He'd split his core into 2 parts only days before, embarking on what he called the Path of Twin Stars. This gave him a natural defense against anyone attacking his spirit, but more importantly, he should theoretically be able to hold 2 types of Madra in the same body. He could keep his own pure Madra while learning Yaren's path as well. Except thus far, every time he'd broached the topic, she had refused to teach him. Yaren's eyes drifted to her own sword, which she'd taken from her master's body. "You need a master, in truth, Lyndon, and those aren't shoes I can fill." He started to protest, but she rode over him. "Listen, you ever heard anybody talk about copper eyes?" He shook his head. "It's a saying I grew up with. Copper eyes see the world. Iron eyes see far, and jade eyes see deep. Tells you what you're in for. At copper, you see aura. You can begin taking it in, cycling it, turning it into Madra. At iron, you are forging the body you'll use for the rest of your life, and the actual eyes in your head get better. And when you hit jade, you can use your spirit to see, sense. There's Not a good word.
Para seguir escuchando este audiolibro gratuitamente, haz clic en el enlace de la descripción y podrás escucharlo completo sin coste gracias a la prueba de 30 días de Audible.